Today we are hosting Fari Zouf. She is entrepreneur, podcast host, and community creator. Welcome to our studio, Fari.
Thank you so much for having me, Elena. It's lovely to be in this studio. I love the concept. I love the vibe.
Fari, so my first question will be, you're the host of the FabDXB podcast, and you are also running different business networking events, which are called Events by Fari. So how did it started? What inspired you to launch these projects?
Good question. The inspiration questions are one of my favorites. So I can narrow it down to say connectivity inspires me. And by that, I mean connecting people, bringing together concepts and ideas. The whole concept of creation and connection is what is at the core of everything I do. So, in terms of anything event related, it's bringing people together. You know, like when you actually connect with somebody else who has the solution to your problem, or you meet somebody who's like minded and you come up with different ideas or a potential partner in business, that connection for me is like magic. So I've noticed that for me, connection is really, really important. And it's really a common denominator in everything that I've done. And I realized that after doing a little bit of self reflection and work to understand what inspires me. And the main reason I came to that conclusion was reading two books. One was Start With Why, and that's by Simon Sinek. That literally made me understand what is my why? What is at the core of everything I do? And that's when I realized connection, bringing people together, was really important. And then I thought about it, how can I transfer that into something that I can create as a business, as my purpose to create, right? And then I came across the Ikigai, which is a Japanese concept. This book literally made me understand that there are four quadrants in what you do that creates whatever is your passion into something that can actually be your life purpose. So we all want to create something and make it into a thriving, successful business. But if it can also be something you love to do, that's like the bliss point, right? So I realized following the four quadrants, I'm trying to remember what they are exactly. It basically comes down to what you're good at, what you love to do. And these two sometimes are not always the same. So you have to kind of write down everything that you're good at, everything you love to do, understand which of these things and what actually can make money. Because at the end of the day, if you love doing something but it can't commercialize, it's not going to bring, sustainability into that. Right. And if you're not great at it, but you can make money from it and you don't love doing it, you can't do it for a long period of time. So then those are the three main areas. The fourth one was what is needed in society. So when I realized, I wrote so much down. This took me days. When I came down to it and I realized it's all about events. Everything that I love to do is events related. Everything I'm good at doing, I'm great at organizing, planning, time management, project management. And what does the world need? That platform for people to connect. And can I make money from it? Yes. So I realized that's it. I realized that's what my core benefit of what I do and what I love to do. So I realized I'm going to be taking inspired action to create more value concepts in terms of even an event that I do. It's not just putting an event together, it's where's the value? And I think that's where I find inspiration to bring people together in creating more value when it comes to conversations, when it comes to connections. And that's where I realized, you know what, whether it's a podcast and you get people to just share and be vulnerable, they're adding value. If it's an event, where can we make the magic happen that people create meaningful connections for business, for everything is on a professional level, but where can you actually add value to somebody else's business? So everything I realized was bringing people together. That's what inspires me. So that's how I started. Just reading and understanding made me realize what I'm good at. I can actually turn that into a business.
So you are a connector by heart.
Yes. This is exactly what I even created an initiative when I was here, I think back in 2009, called Dubai Connectors. It was very early for the concept of speed networking. Because I grew up in the UK. So in the UK, we were a lot more time conscious and we wanted to meet as many people as possible. And I thought to myself, let's do something like that. But it was way too early for Dubai. people were still thinking it was odd. You need to have a long conversation to know if you connect. And the networking in terms of speed networking didn't take off. Lo and behold, we're now in 2025 and the concept is actually really
Picking up.
thriving, right? Exactly. So again, it goes to show that just I had an idea, but it didn't work back then and now it is. So it just might be timing related. But yeah, connection, I think, and being a connector is something that it gives me the energy, right? And I love it. So it matches my Ikigai. So I thought, great, that's it. I found it. I'm onto my path. And that's it. There we
You're
are.
in the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Fari, on your LinkedIn profile, it says mentioned that you launched multiple initiatives and projects. So, what was the major one and most successful startup project you launched?
So this is an interesting question because I measure success and failure very differently. And I think the energy you put into something and the vision you have for it is not always going to work out as you planned, but the outcome shouldn't be how you measure success and failure. I think the intention you put into something, that will be your course correction. So I've started a lot of initiatives, as you mentioned. Some of them, like I said, they were beyond their time. They were too early. Some of them didn't hit the mark exactly. I had to kind of go back and tweak here and there before it was ready. But the concept, I would say, is success really is down to your own perspective.
Okay.
And how you deem something as successful or not shouldn't really be down to what society regards as success, but it should be down to, did you put all your effort into it? Did you really have the intention to create value in something? And did you put everything into what you could have? And if it didn't work, that's still okay, but it's your level of energy you put in, your vision, your intention. So my way of determining and defining success has changed over the years because, to be quite honest with you, I have started things. I've started businesses and I've had to close them. It just wasn't really satisfying me. And when I realized at the end of the day, you have to find joy in what you do. Even if you are making money and you can grow the business, if you lose passion in what you're doing and you just don't have that thrive for it, you're putting in that low level energy, which I believe in what goes around comes around. So if I'm putting in energy which is low, I'm not going to really add a lot of value to what my clients are getting. So I realize in some instances, even though you start something with great intention, once you kind of lose the love for it, it's time to close it. So yeah, like I said, in my opinion, success shouldn't be defined by what levels you're hitting in terms of financials or how many customers you have or how many markets you're operating in. It really is, in terms of, for me, value based. Are you gaining value from this? Are your clients gaining value from this? And if that's the case, you'll be able to grow and expand, and there will be a longevity in it. So yeah, I think initiatives, you should not be afraid to start, even though you didn't succeed in the past, but take a lesson from everything. I strongly believe that.
But do you think you need to concentrate on things which the market need, or you can probably hit with some idea which can work out all of a sudden?
I believe in following your instinct. I believe your intuition will guide you. And that's not really how you set a business plan together, but I also think that you do need to kind of listen to what your inner compass is telling you. If there is a gap in the market, and that's why literally one of the businesses that I'm actually partnered up with my sister is formed from that. It's not my industry. It's in the medical aesthetics. It's not something I know well about, but I do know about marketing. And the beauty of marketing, it can be applied to all industries. But what we realized was, with her industry background and my know-how, we defined a gap in the market. And that's where we were like, okay, where can we add value in this? And we went fully into it, realizing nobody else is doing what we're doing, and how we can bring elements into play is needed. And now it's just about re-educating people to understand, just because this is the way it is done, it doesn't mean this is how we should do things. You could do things differently. You can bring technology into different ways of running your business, and you can digital transform things. And it just made me realize that you do, of course, have to bear in mind what is needed in the market. You have to be able to fill a gap, but you also need to be able to add some extra value in there. Don't just do a copy paste. I strongly believe in the concept of innovate, don't imitate. So I don't think there is a need for just doing what other people are doing. I do believe that you should try to bring something new to the market, but fill the gap.
So in 2024, you launched PodClub, the only community in Dubai for podcasters. Is it still an ongoing project? And what you like to do more? Hosting events, being a host, or building communities?
Elena, that's a very interesting question. You're asking me, do I love my passion, or my passion? So it's a difficult question to answer. But in fairness, what we started with PodClub, I'm one of the founding members, and it came through my intention to get back into community work. And I love working in the concept of creating a community. I believe it's what is needed right now. People are working to belong. You know, there is a sense of wanting to be part of something bigger. And I think that's what community is all about. So the concept of what PodClub is all about is the place where podcasters, content creators can go, feel part of a community, share ideas, and inspire one another, meet other fellow podcasters and creators to, you know, kind of connect with one another. Again, like I said, connection for me is very important. So community brings people together. And of course, we've just started. It's literally, we've just made it 1 year. My interaction is fully focusing on bringing events. So doing all the in-person community events that we do, bringing in experts in the field of, they are podcasters, but they're also experts in specific niche elements. Mm-hmm. And it's really just inspiring people who either have a podcast and they want to take it to the next level, or if they're thinking, oh, I'd love to, I don't know where to start, this is the best place to come. So as a community itself, it is Dubai's one and only podcasting community. And we have huge ambitions. You know, we're already doing now work in Singapore. Oh. And we're expanding as it is. So I see this as being a huge movement in terms of community. I think is the future. And I really strongly believe that creators and podcasters, there is a big need for podcasting right now. It's developing to be something as a medium for brands and businesses to utilize. So of course there will be a need. And like we just said, if you are going to launch something, identify the need and fill the gap. So I think podcasting is a huge growing medium and with a lot of potential to be even bigger. So yeah, people don't watch TV anymore. They actually tune in, they watch on demand, and podcasting fills that gap. So yes, this is just the beginning. That's all I'm going to say. This
industry is picking up, actually.
100%. I mean, look, we're doing a podcast right now. I personally love consuming podcasts. I've been doing it for years. And I started my own very first podcast back in 2018, but I never went live with it. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know how. I didn't know the platforms. I didn't know how to get things going. But now that I'm part of a growing community and I'm leading the events for it, I'm learning as I go along. And throughout this journey, even myself, I started to realize the vision that I had for FabDXP, which was actually founders, failures and beyond. I pivoted and I turned it into something which is more about founders and breakthroughs. So in itself, this entire 1 year of leading the community, I did a lot of inner work myself and realized I need to pivot my podcast. So that's exactly what I did. I took a break from it and I just had to re-strategize, where am I going? I learned a lot just from the guests that I was inviting to be on the show as well. But it's a massive learning. And I think if you have communities that are focusing on what you are doing, either as your passion project or as your business, join them, be part of them. You know, people want to belong, and community is a great way to belong to something that is aligned to you. So yeah, it's just the beginning of PodClub right now. It's a year in and we have a long way, big ideas. So it's one to look out for.
So actually, yeah, this is the show which I wanted to ask about founders, 10 failures, 100 lessons. So if we gonna, as you mentioned, debunking the shame surrounding failures, right? So if we're gonna talk about 5 big failures from past experience of your guests, what would it be?
Elena, you're asking me from like 18 episodes to highlight 5. It's a difficult question. Good question. I think I can narrow it down to, look, I started FabDXB as a show for me to highlight the stories of entrepreneurs that I knew personally, some that I have been, inspired by. And I wanted to really understand what were their lessons learned. So I could easily say we've now done 18 episodes. And from them, I'd say the biggest failure would easily be any entrepreneur or business who is afraid to fail is a failure in itself. Okay. So in a nutshell, I think that's my biggest learning. Don't be afraid to take the step. Don't be afraid to start a new business, because of the fear of failure shouldn't hold you back. That was my number one learning. All the people that I met, and I'm getting goosebumps now, all the people that I met throughout the show, honestly, were very courageous and brave enough to talk about the concept of failure, and debunking it was purely off the back of a community event that I did, which was a growing movement, actually. It started back in Mexico, and it was based on sharing failure stories, 10 minutes each by different entrepreneurs, and let that just heal the wounds of failing and letting go. When I realized 10 minutes is not enough to listen to these stories, I thought, I want to get to know a little bit more. And that's what inspired me to start the podcast back in 2018. I didn't do anything with the content, but here we are sitting in 2025, 18 episodes down, and it's really therapy for me, right? So taking on board what I've learned through the conversations that I've had with my guests, I'd say one of them, for example, episode 5. Honestly, throughout the show, you will actually see my face when I have an aha moment that my guest and I were both betrayed by exactly the same person. Oh. We didn't have a conversation off camera. It just came out in conversation in terms of she was sharing how she was betrayed by having full trust in this person. I then had an enlightening moment when I suddenly thought, oh my God, this is exactly the same person who took advantage of me as well. Now, we both had massive learnings. I literally set my foundation in terms of, even if you work with somebody who is a public figure and they're super successful and a celebrity in their own right, does not mean you don't have a contract. You need to have contracts. You need to have agreements. Lesson learned. So from my side, just understanding that learning to trust someone in the right way and not being afraid of being betrayed is a huge learning in itself. We were both taken advantage of. We were both betrayed, but it was a massive learning for both of us. Another one would be right up until episode 18, which I just filmed. It was with one of the, actually the world's leading #1 CEO coach. And he coaches most of the Forbes 500 CEOs. In the middle of the conversation we were having, I literally felt like I'm getting coaching from Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who is a leading author. He's written one of my favorite books, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It's a huge process in trying to understand letting go of the past. A lot of entrepreneurs don't let go of regrets. And as we were having a conversation, he literally gave me a technique and he said, you're still holding on to some sort of regrets. And I literally took a moment and I said, yes, I am. He goes, you have to let it go. And he just taught me a technique of how you have to breathe and just say, I let it go, I let it go. I used to be like that in the middle of filming. You know what I mean? So like I said, it's therapy for me. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't let go of the hurt. They don't let go of the regret. They get stuck in the past, and that stops you from taking steps into the future. So again, another episode, one of the most important ones, which for me was episode 4 as well. We talked about pivoting in a business. And it really is something that a lot of business owners don't do because they think this is what I've understood to be my success metric. I'm just going to keep going. But the environment, society, economy, like the market changes. If you don't change with it, you're not agile enough. And I think COVID was one of those big learnings for me. I have an event management agency. COVID, we had lockdown. I couldn't do any in-person events. If I didn't pivot my business, I wouldn't have one right now. So what I realized was, what can I do now that can keep me in business? And I just realized online is the market right now. So what can I do? And I just realized everyone is having these Zoom sessions. Why not do something online, create webinars? Lo and behold, 4 months later, we did about 120 webinars for clients. And even after in-person events were able to take place, people still wanted to do online webinars. So I realized that online was an aspect within the business I never thought about. And organically, it just expanded. So we started developing online sessions for businesses. We did social media for businesses. And it just allowed me to develop a whole new aspect to the services that I provide by pivoting. So I think, again, if you're not agile enough, you get left behind. That came apparent in my guest learning as well, which was all about pivoting. There are so many lessons that come up. I really honestly believe if you take things too personally and you don't learn the lesson, you're not going to be able to grow. And that was one of the big things. You have to move forward. And I do also believe that even in episode 14, one of the main learnings from my guest, he's a very successful serial entrepreneur and he had 9 exits. Now, through this, he basically just showed me a very different perspective, which was, you cannot try to make everyone love you. In a business, you have to think about how is this business going to survive? And if you have investors, you have to, make sure that they are, at the end of the day, satisfied and they're getting their return. So if your employees are not going to be satisfied, but you need to satisfy investors, it's a compromise you're going to have to make. You're not going to be loved by everybody, but if you take things personally, you're not going to be able to allow your business to thrive. So that was another big learning, because even in episodes, I've had people say, my business is my baby, and they take it too much to heart. Their love and their soul and their spirit is in their business. But you have to work on your business as if it's a business. It's not your baby. So again, so many lessons have come up through these conversations that made me realize there are learnings that everyone is taking on, but if we just have certain conversations with people and we connect, we can learn so much that can help us throughout our own journey.
Fari, why do you think many entrepreneurs and businessmen, they are still holding off of talking about their failures? Why they're hesitant?
Well, I'll tell you my own personal story. I was very nervous even to think about my failures, and because there's a lot of shame attached. And the shame of talking about something that didn't go right keeps us very stuck in terms of vulnerability. In some regards is seen as a weakness. So why would I let somebody else know, especially my competitor, that I failed at something? They have the upper hand. So these thoughts that we have keep us stuck. And if we can break through these barriers internally, we're, as they say, the truth will set you free. It's a cliche, but it's so true. The minute that I realized I just got divorced, I had to close a business down. I had to move from Moscow, which is where I was living, back to Dubai, not having a clue what I'm going to be doing. I felt like, what a failure. Then I started to read and do a lot of internal work. And that's where I started to understand how my mind works through NLP. I started to do a little bit more digging and understanding emotional intelligence. I spent close to about 1.5 years really going deep into who am I, how do I operate, what do I want, and all of this. So that's where I came across Start With Why, Ikigai, all of these concepts. But what I understood was my fear of talking about what didn't go right was keeping me stuck. And as in the Middle East, we're not really encouraged to talk about things that bring a little bit of shame. Divorce was one of them. Not having a successful business was another one. All of these things, if you let go of the shame, it doesn't have any power. So I really understood that if I am able to talk about certain things, then just demystifying that element of shame will allow me to break free. And it's exactly what I did. And that's when I started the community called FundEXP, and we ran, monthly events. It started off something small with like 20, 30 people. By the end of when we stopped it, it was like close to 250 people coming on a monthly basis, just sharing stories, listening, really building that community. And it helped me to break free from whatever I had in my head about not talking about my failures. So yes, it's shame, it's fear of being judged, and it's just a fallacy.
But what do you think, if we're talking about the UAE, what is a common business failure here?
It's a very interesting question because we have such diversity here in the UAE, and I would strongly learn from the best. I believe that you learn from people who have made a success, and if you look at just what the UAE is right now, the leaders have actually taken massive risks, and they've built I like to call Dubai my home. And I feel like this is now where I regard it as my safe place. I cannot think of anywhere else I would like to live other than Dubai. I've started multiple businesses here. So for me, I'm ready to invest and make this my home because I believe in the way that this city and this country is being led. Strong leadership, I think, is one of those important values. And let's say if you are starting a business, you need to know yourself well. If you're not sure of what your strengths and weaknesses are, you're going to find them out as you start your business. You have to have certain level of soft skills, of course. You know, how you're able to manage your time, how you're able to manage your energy levels, how you can communicate with other people, how you can take rejection. These things are very important. But if you don't know yourself through this journey of entrepreneurship, you certainly will understand who you are. And I think if you don't learn the lessons, that's probably one of the things that you will find it's going to be very difficult to make a successful business in any industry, in any market. But I do believe that if you have the vision and the dream to start something, Dubai is the city that actually allows you to formulate those ideas and brings the people together to give you the chance to make it happen. But you have to take that initial step. So I really wouldn't say it's only Dubai. I think generally, the number one thing that will stop people from actually having a successful business is the fear to start the dream, the fear to even take that step. I think fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of what could this be? What if it's not good enough? What if somebody else has done it? Who am I to compete? All of these fears will stop you from taking that step. That's probably the number one thing. It's an internal conflict. Whatever is going on in the market, whatever is happening in your industry, you can make it work. But inside is probably the biggest realizations you have to have, that once you fulfill that,
The biggest battle.
exactly, the biggest hurdle is internal. Once you're able to manage that and you know your strengths and weaknesses, you can do anything.
So getting back to those failures which you were talking about, do you think there was some risk indicators which basically was a signal to a collapse which might happen?
So that's the easiest way I can answer that is no. I don't think there is a cheat sheet where you can follow. There are no real telltale signs. But what I would definitely say is, at the end of the day, if you observe what other successful people are doing and understand their challenges, their hurdles that they went through, you could try to avoid certain mistakes. But I think in any journey, you are going to have some form of challenge. You are going to face something which is going to be difficult. It goes back again into your resolve. So you need to have the grit, the resilience, the commitment to whatever you're doing. And that's something that you have to desire to maximize. You need to be able to have the strength within yourself to find the solutions, because problems are always going to come up. It's just the severity and the intensity and the duration of it that determines whether it's going to make or break you. But ultimately, you have to find the strength within to be able to go through that process. I wish I could give you a cheat sheet to say, yes, these are the signs you can look out for. But I think one aspect that I did notice very well in terms of people, not realizing the level of mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, when you give so much and you're just pulling everything into this, whether it's financial, emotional, energy, taking time from your family to plug into a business, there is a toll, right? There is a level of where you reach your maximum capacity. But that's where I think you need to really pull in your own strength and understand, to avoid burnout, you need to have check-ins with yourself. So this is where I would say self-check-ins for me was a very important understanding, to just have those talks with myself and just say, right, where are you right now? Are you okay to go on with this? Do you need to take a break? Can you take a break? Can you delegate? Who do you have to talk to? And I think one of the big things that made it apparent to me was, if you have a strong support network you have to have that will within yourself. You have to have the motivation, because it's you and you only that can make it through everything. But you do need to reach out for that support system. And again, that goes down to your community. Whether you have your family here, whether you have a strong family unit, whether your friends are your family, whether your colleagues become your family, you do need to have that support system. So I would probably say it's easier to see somebody else who might be struggling than to notice yourself struggling. And if you do have that support system, and people do ask you, are you okay? Have the strength enough to turn around and say, I'm really not. That was one of the big signs that I noticed. People start to get very withdrawn. You start to see them less often. It's a sign to just ask, are you all right? Is everything okay? Even in the height of success, you might not be able to handle all of the requirements, responsibility, and lack of time to complete all the things you have to. So it's not just when you're struggling, it's even when you're really successful. And I do believe that this might be counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I did think that there was a massive highlighting emphasis on fear of failure, but there is also a fear of success. And there was a shock to me when I came to realize, wait, I have a fear of success? That doesn't even make sense. Logically, it doesn't. But I think coming from an entrepreneurial family, on my mother's side, my uncle, my cousins, my grandfather, very successful entrepreneurs in textile and construction back in Iran. And then my father being a serial entrepreneur, I was brought up as someone who saw entrepreneurship. But I also realized that there is a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of, we left Iran to go to the UK, which was around the time of the Iran-Iraq war back in the 80s. And there was a lot of separation. My dad had to start again, brand new business. And he started multiple businesses. But it's because he knew how to do it that he was able to just keep going at it. But I saw a lot of things that when you are successful, you aren't always with your family. You aren't always, given all the time of luxury that you have to go do whatever you want to do. Eventually, yes, but there's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of challenges that you face. So I started to develop this very negative connotation towards success, which I had to break through, because otherwise you're going to keep distancing yourself from the thing you fear. So counterintuitively, I started to realize fear of failure is a very strong entity, but so is fear of success. So I think these things, if you want to try and learn what you are fearful of, you need to have that time within yourself to understand, what is my strength? What is my weakness? And when I hit any of these, how do I get through it? You have to find the right mechanisms for yourself. And sometimes it's just as simple as having a conversation with someone you love and trust, and just say, I'm having a hard time dealing with this. And I did. When I was actually at the point of very, very successful situation where I'm having very happy clients and the business is thriving, I was exhausted. I had real burnout. I just didn't know that it was okay for me to say, I'm going to take a break. I just thought I have to keep going. This is crazy. If I stop now, I'm going to say no to potential customers and clients and business. And I didn't realize that it was okay for me to say, I need a break. Now, of course, in hindsight, I realize that that's what I should have done. But it makes me realize you need to see the signs when you are struggling. And if you can see that in somebody else, just to give them that shoulder to say, if you need a chat, I'm here for you. And that's why I think community is really important, because you do have that sense of help.
There is a saying, it's not a matter how you fail. It's a matter how you overcome, come up, and move on. So it means that you can win a failure if you want. What do you think?
I 100% agree. One of the books that really helped me, and the concept and the principle, is Failing Forward. So John C. Maxwell, great book. I've read it probably 100 times, and you'll see a lot of my notes in the sides. There is the concept of failing doesn't have to stop you from progressing. If you learn how to fail productively, learn to fail fast. The longer you delay failure, the slower you will progress. So failing fast actually is a concept that was very strange for me to understand, but I came to realize if you learn how to do something really quickly and you learn all the possible potholes in that and the things where it's making you not be as fast, not be as successful, you will learn for the next venture you do. So failing forward is a concept that is a mindset shift. You reject the concept of rejection. You don't fear rejection anymore. You just think, I might be rejected, but I might hear a yes. So you will go for it. And the what if that potentially holds people back. What if I'm rejected? Well, what if you're accepted? What if you hear a yes in that meeting? You know, the just reprogramming your mindset is huge. And I do believe that, yes, it's more to do with your response to any experience by determining whether it was good or bad. We don't know until later. If you heard, like if I pitched for a business, right? I went and I pitched and I got a no. And I would sit back and say, well, I've spent, a month preparing for this and I heard a no. It's a rejection. And I would sit there and think, well, how can I perfect it for next time? How can I improve it? How can I get better? But maybe that no gave me the tools that I needed to get better for the next pitch. So if you always think about how can I get better at this, anytime you hear a no, it will help you to improve. So the concept of failing forward, I think, was really something that woke me up. But I do certainly believe it's not so much about, just running towards failure, but it's about picking yourself up when you do experience it. Because it's not about you being a failure. It's about you have failed at something. So that failure in itself is just an experience. What did you learn from it? It's purely the lessons learned. And I believe there are always lessons in every experience that we go through. What are the lessons you're learning? If you are able to pick up the lessons, it will never be a failure. It will always be a progressive action. That's how I strongly suggest people not to be afraid of failure, to look at it as, how can I learn from this?
Okay, so in this way, for sure, you always need to encounter for failures in any business, right? Did you encounter for it in your own projects, through your own entrepreneurship path?
Honestly speaking, I didn't plan on failures. I didn't prepare for failures because when I started, my first initiatives I started was back in university days. I didn't even understand about failures. Like I said, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family and I had only seen the success that my father was experiencing. So I'd never really understood what goes on in your mind and emotionally when you experience something that was regarded as a failure. But have I encountered it in the last 20 years? Most certainly. How I dealt with it at the beginning, not so great, because I didn't have the tools and the resources. I didn't discover methodologies that I was able to utilize when I actually faced the first failure. Even handling rejection, I wasn't great at hearing a no. I would take it personally and think, what did I do wrong? Why did they not like me? And I internalized it. Whereas now, of course, I've realized to think very differently about it. My mindset is more about a growth mindset. It's more about if I hear a no, I don't need to convince that person to make it a yes, but I need to understand what is it teaching me inside that I need to make this better. I need to tweak it. I need to get my communication at a certain level. It's more about understanding to talk about my value and what I'm bringing to the table rather than how can I sell. I don't want to take from the potential customer. I want to add value. That in itself came through some processes of talking to potential customers, and my point was not getting through. My services were not being recognized because I wasn't highlighting the value. When I realized I need to turn everything into value-based, everything just became easier. So failure is something I've encountered personally. Rejection I've faced multiple times on a professional level. And honestly speaking, it's just made me more determined to get better at communicating, get better at understanding how I want to serve the customer and my client and where I can add value. I think once you start to realize how you can get better at whatever it is you're doing, you will be able to take the no's and take the it didn't work out better. And like even now, whenever I do an event, I still look at it as like, what can we improve here? And I still ask for feedback. Even in community events, I'm like, guys, if anyone has a better way that we can do this, let me know. If you have any suggestions, I want to hear about it. Even when I do corporate events, I always ask my clients, was there anything that you would like us to improve? Because I believe in the value of feedback. Now, not everyone knows how to give constructive feedback. They just say, I don't like it. It's not really feedback for me. But
Subjective.
yeah, it's very subjective. But you need to get better at asking questions. So I always suggest that empower yourselves to ask empowering questions. If I ask, like, what can I improve in this? It's not going to give me an answer to say I didn't like it. They will actually be guided to give me what I can improve. If they say nothing I think was perfect, wonderful. But there's always room for improvement. And I think if you have that mindset that you're able to grow from every experience, it will get you to be better at what you're doing. And if you love what you're doing, you would want to get better at it, right? So it's a concept where, yes, I definitely think you need to be inquisitive. You need to ask people for feedback and then take that feedback and implement it in what you're doing so you can get better at what you're doing.
If we're looking at the UE market, here we see that many companies opening and closing every year. What do you think is the main factor when you are setting up business here, and what would be your advice for somebody who is starting a business in the UAE?
I think the advice would be in a very different point of view. I don't believe in business plans. I know that might be very strange for a lot of people. Even for 3 of my business, I didn't have a business plan. I had a very strong intention, and the intention remains to this day. But I know that, of course, you need to have projections and forecasts and all of this. But I don't believe that you should be run by numbers. I think you should be run by the value that you want to bring. And I keep mentioning this word, but it really has transformed the way that I operate. I never really looked at a business like, I'm going to start this and I'm going to make X amount by the end of the year, or I'm going to have X number of clients. I never looked at it. I just looked at, okay, how am I going to change the game? Everyone is doing this. How can I go this way and then do something different? I want to change things up. I want to improve things. So for that, I need to be able to bring a different level. I have to go deeper within myself to understand what is that level that I can bring that no one else can. That's something that you can't really put a value on. But when you start putting it out there, people are like, oh, I like what she's doing. I want to talk to her. I've never advertised anything in terms of my services. People always come to me through word of mouth. That to me in itself is a massive success metric.
Recognition.
Exactly. It's people have recognized the fact that I love what I do. You have me in your corner. And when I put my name to it, you know that I'm going to deliver. So when you know you have somebody like that on your side, you're going to come to me and be like, yeah, Fari, I want you to run this. So it's just the way that I operate. People sense it. They sense my love and my commitment to what I do. I won't put my name to something unless I know that I'm going to give it my all. And my team members and people that I bring on to execute anything, they have the same. I bring people on who have the same level of dedication. They're not, of course, going to be up until 3 o'clock in the morning like I am to make sure things are done. But I understand that they want to make it a success. And because of that, we will do everything we can to make it work. That's the kind of mindset. If they know they have me in their corner, they know my team are going to be the same. So I do believe that you have to have the right intention. For me, my intention is to change the game, is to bring something new to the table, to make value something which is much more important than, in terms of success should be seen as how much are you putting in to know how much you're getting out. I put in so much love and energy into what I do, and people sense it. So I'm winning. Whatever happens, I'm enjoying the process, and that's why I love doing what I'm doing.
So you are not the person who is leading the business by the book, or let's say best practices, what they teach in business schools, right? You are following your, let's call it gut feeling or intuition or your perspective. So do you think it's important for entrepreneurs to have a business education, or ground experience is more valuable? I think I know the answer.
Well, this is going to come as a surprise. I studied business studies for university. So I do believe you need to have some level
Base.
of foundation, right? But I also at the same time was working in my dad's business. So in my last year of uni, he already had a successful business. He had two. One of them, it just so happened that I said, well, okay, I enjoy doing marketing, so why not come and start doing some marketing in the business? He goes, come. So I went, and in my last year of uni, I was not only getting the foundations in class, but I was actually learning on the job, which I think is so important. And funnily enough, this is back in the late 90s. So we didn't have social media. Marketing for me back in those days was doing exhibitions and events, and your advertising was on newspapers. Like, we're talking back in the day. And I realized that one of the businesses that my dad had was in the luxury field, and he was dealing with Persian handmade carpets. Now, he at that time was an import-exporter of wool to Iran for the textile and carpet industry. One of his customers wasn't able to fulfill his invoice, and he said, look, I've got all these carpets. Can you take those as payment? He said, fine. Being the entrepreneur that my dad was, he said, you know what? This is going to be a great business. We're going to start a luxury retail outlet in terms of supplying retailers with handmade carpets. A whole new business started. So when I came out, I said, I can market this. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking back in those days, after I've done some processing to understand, what did I bring to the table back in the late 90s? I realized in the time of no social media, no online marketing, no SEO, no ads, offline, nothing. Yeah. Everything was offline. How can I reach the customer? How can I make them understand the value of this expensive item they're purchasing? And I developed this process to say, you know what, I'm going to record on VHS what the history of making carpets is all about. Why is this item so expensive? How you can take care of it, how it can actually be a valuable antique if you take care of it. So I put together the concept of this luxury item. There is a history behind it. You're buying into the history of Persian culture. And, this is now a craft that unfortunately is no longer present in Iran. People very, very rarely are able to actually even understand how to make carpets by hand because it's not being taught anymore. That's the shame about it. That's a loss in our culture. But if we understand the value, then you know the minimum number of 9 months it takes to build this piece of luxury. Oh. So people didn't know that. I didn't know that until I started researching it. So I realized that tell people the story. People, back in those days, I didn't even understand that's what I was doing. But now, of course, I realize people understand the story of why this is such an important piece and why it's so expensive. They buy into it. So back in those days, I started to realize I need to reach the customer. I don't know who's buying this, but I need to build a story around this piece. And that's what I started doing, pure just recording on a VHS. Then I just copied it and sent it to all the different retailers we had across the country. And we started to have bigger sales. I didn't even know, that wasn't my intention. How can I increase sales? My intention was, how can people understand the value of what they're purchasing? It was really important. And that's when I started to realize I love the concept of marketing, and it has to support sales. It's not just marketing as a separate division. I need to be able to support the sales for me to justify the reason of why we should spend on marketing. So that's I learned the foundation and I implemented it. But again, I wasn't taught this, nobody taught me to go and actually record the story of the carpet. It just came intuitively to me and I started doing it. Now, of course, we have so many different resources available. I did take an online course to understand how digital marketing and social media can improve your brand and your business. But now, 2025, it's so important for your business and your brand. If I don't learn along the way, I'm going to be left aside. So I do think you need to stay up to date, but I believe that you need to have the right principles. You need to also go within yourself and understand what can I do to make things different. So you should learn the foundations, but I also believe you need to take that actionable steps to learn the ropes, to understand how you can do things, get the experience you need, because you cannot learn everything you need in a classroom or an online course. It's very important to learn as you go along. So I think that's a hybrid model. You do need to have the foundations and the principles, and which you can learn, and also have the experience to first of all even know if this is what you want to do. I remember in school, I went on a 1 week work experience. And back in those days, I wanted to be a lawyer. So, of course, I found a law firm back in London, a very wonderful, very, prestigious law firm that would go back in those days. The Old Bailey was a very, very well known, it still is now actually, court in London. And my idea of law was all of these wonderful programs I saw on TV, like LA Law, and very, razzmatazz kind of glitz and glamour. It's not like that. There's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of research, a lot of these concepts I didn't think about. When I did that 1 week, I knew solidly I'm not going to be, law is not for me. And I realized that's not the right course for me. So I just changed my way. That only came because I took 1 week experience, right? I wouldn't have known that. So imagine if I spent years in, law school and then come to realize it's not what I want to do. I think you need to have the experience, but at the same time, you need to have the foundations and the principles.
Fari, there is a difference. Work on a business and work in a business. Do you see this difference? What is your opinion on that?
Yes.
I like this quote.
I love it. It's really, really a very powerful quote because I noticed in my own experience working, when I was too focused working in the business, I didn't have the time, energy, or focus to work on my business. And I think there is a massive distinction. Working in the business as a solopreneur, you kind of have to do everything, right? So when I first started, I was the finance, I was the marketing, I was the business development, I was tech, I was everything. As you develop and you're able to allocate and delegate, you can give those roles to other people. So you should be starting to work on your business, develop the strategies, develop the partnerships, learn how to expand, learn how to grow. This is really important. And I think I learned it firsthand in terms of when you're so deep in it, you can't look at as a bird's eye view of which road you should take, how you can strategically tie up partnerships and how you can expand. So massive difference, but sometimes you only can see that too late in the game. But I also believe that it's never too late to turn it around and make it work for you. So yes, it's a very, very powerful quote. And I think if more people were able to understand how you can, there's a huge difference than being in it and being on it. Huge. And there is a transition. As I said, solopreneurs usually are in it. That's why they find it difficult to grow and expand. And sometimes when you're so focused on how you're strategically operating, you lose the love and the passion for why you started it, or you might not even know why you started it. So your why is not as strong. I think you need to have both. I think you need to have a strong intention and why that keeps you grounded, but you also have to have that bird's eye view to have the strategic view to understand how you can scale. It's really important.
So it means that you shouldn't go deep in details, or let's call it nitty-gritty things, but you should have a broader vision and always keep on with it. To make it work.
You need both. If you can delegate that level to somebody who can actually be detail orientated and on the operational side, make sure that everything, quality control, all of those things are taken care of, and you focus, you and potential partners or whoever you have on your side to develop, then you've got all cases covered. But you cannot do all, because I personally don't believe that we have that capacity to do everything. That's the beauty of having people to support you,
right.
To work with a bigger team, work with freelancers if you can't afford, full-time staff. I certainly was able to utilize the intelligence and the flexibility of freelancers in my business, because for me, I know that they want to work on projects that excite them, and they don't want to work with one company. They want to work with multiple. And I'm like, great, work on my project, lead this if you need to. Next project comes along, I work with different people. But my database of people is so vast, and I'm really grateful for that, because I know such great people who are passionate about what they do. And I bring them on when the project suits their skills. So I don't try to force someone to do something they're not good at. I find the right person who's great at what I need, and I give that job to them. So I do believe that you should reach out to people who are great at what they do. Don't think that everyone should be great at everything. It's literally impossible. I don't think you will find anyone who's good at doing everything. You will find a successful business for me is one that is based on very strong values, that has the team, whatever you define the team to be, whether they're remotely working or they're freelancers or, full-time or whatever, but a team that is thriving on doing what they're great at.
Right. And my last question will be, what would you advise for us at Solar City team?
Well, yeah, basically you're wanting a consultation right now. No, I do strongly believe that the vision of what you have to create is strong. It's built on a value basis. And I think the team that I've only met a few of you, but I get a great vibe. And I think you all have this great level of energy. You are excited about what you want to do. You want to make things work. And what I've understood already is you're ready to try things and see if they work or not. And if they don't, you take the learnings and you implement, you do things differently. So I think already, it's something that you're bringing what is needed in the market, building that platform of trust and reliability and credibility, but also learning that if you do something that doesn't work, just try something different. So I strongly think that, keep doing what you're doing, put your ear out there and hear what the feedback is, and you're onto a good thing. I strongly think that your team is the right kind of level. You always, every time I see you guys, you're always smiling. You always got the right vibe. Even if there's like things happening in behind the scenes, nobody needs to know about it. We're all good. We got this. So I think you've got the right principles and you're value driven. And I think that's a very strong business value. Very strong pillar in success is to be value driven. And you've already got that.
So thank you, Fari, for joining us today. It was my pleasure really meeting you. Thank you for your quotes and very interesting stories. I personally wish you success in all your endeavors, and I believe you will keep on. So best of luck.
Thank you so much, Elena. It's been a lovely conversation. You've taken me back down to memory lane, which is always a pleasure. And I wish you guys the best. I think you are working towards building something great with a really solid foundation. And I love the fact that you're doing a podcast. Bravo to you. So yes, I think you're going to be ones to watch out for. So congratulations to you guys as well.
Thank you. And thank you for our audience for joining us today. Please follow Solar City YouTube channel.